Okay, so moving on. I'm not too happy about the height of this headboard. It's just an aesthetic thing, but we'll come back to that. If we look at our picture again, or my picture, we'll see these columns are actually slightly tapered, and we need to put some kind of finial or acorn on top. So anyway, the taper. Let's go back to Blender. So we need to taper these four posts or columns. So first of all, let's join them all together. So I'm going to shift select each one and Control J to join them. So now they're all one object. And now I can go into edit mode. Now I'm going to deselect everything. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to just select the top ring. Well, there's a couple of ways to do this. I could do this way. Actually, let's do it this way. I'm just going to go into my kind of front view. That's the top there, so I'm going to box select that. I'm going to box select that. And I'm going to box select these rear ones. Okay, so we want to scale these in to create a taper. Now if I was just to scale it as it is, we're going to get this kind of weird thing because it's all scaling in towards the middle point. What we need to do is change this pivot point to the individual origins. Okay, and what that'll do, it'll just scale it in on equally on each of these four posts. So with that selected, S, and now as I start to bring them in, you see they just kind of taper on their own. They're not pulling in together. I'm looking, don't know if you see down here in this bottom left corner down here, you've got I've lost myself completely here. Here we go. You've got some figures. So I'm looking at the X scale, Y scale, and I'm going for about, I don't know, 3/4, 75% or so. So somewhere about there. Right, so if I go back into object mode, you see these are now tapered. That's actually probably a little too much looking at it that way. Let's have a look in the perspective view. Not too bad, but still a bit small. So let me try that again. Let me just scale it out a bit. S. There we go. So probably in a bit. It's just a matter of judging it by eye. There we go. I think that'll look okay. So we've got a slight taper on these. Once again, if I go to a orthographic view, you can see they are definitely tapered. Okay, so that's the four of them done. Before I do anything else, I'm just going to reset my pivot point because it will cause me problems later, I'm sure. And usually I just leave it at the median point, you know, which once again would be the center of everything. Right, so we need to some kind of like finial or acorn on top. So let me just go into, actually let's do that view. Okay, my cursor's down here under the bed. It's fine, it can be up here, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put it up there, and I'm going to add a, what am I going to add? I'm going to add a UV sphere. Okay, massive as it is, but that's okay. I probably don't want so many segments, 32, so I'm going to reduce that down to 16 because it's going to be quite small. So 16, not 26. Okay, yep, so that's reduced the geometry on that, and now I can scale it down. I'll just scale it down to about there for now, and I want to produce some kind of like acorn shape, or you know, something to finish off those posts. So I'm looking at this. I've got my occluded geometry, my X-ray, my visible key here active, so I can see the geometry behind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the halfway point here, and I'm going to select the upper half. So that's everything selected, and I'm going to squish this all down to this point here, to it's all the same on the z-axis. So SZ0. Okay, you see this has come up a bit, so I can just grab the arrow and bring this down to about there. Okay, I can then come in. At this point, I can actually turn off the visible background. At this point, I'm going to come in. I'm going to come into about here. So I'm going to select this vertex, move across to the center of the edge, Alt Shift select, and I think I want all of these now. So let me just circle select everything inside that circle. It's probably a better way to do this. In fact, there is. Let me Control Z backwards. So I've just got that selected. The easier way to do this is just to hide these with the H key, and then with one of these selected, press the L key. There we go. Alright, so let's come to this front view again. Let's pull this up, and let's deselect the outer ring. So Shift Alt and select it, deselect it. Come to front view again, pull this up, and I'm just going to keep going on this till I kind of make the shape of one. There's probably an easy way to do this as well. But anyway, that'll work. Okay, so I've come this far. Now I want some kind of point on this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to select the center one, go to my front view again, and I'm going to use proportional editing, which is this key or the O key. So O to turn it on. I've got this sphere. I've got this single one selected. I'm just going to grab it or pull it up on the Z axis. I'm going to use grab rather than pull it up, because grab will show me my circle of influence. I just want to bring that inside the outer circle and start grabbing this up on the Z axis. And there we go, we've got this acorn finial type thing. Right, so object mode, let me just smooth this out. But see, with smoothing we're getting this kind of smooth edge here. We can take care of that later with an edge split modifier. But anyway, let's go into a front view. Obviously it's way too big, so let's scale it down to about that size. Let's grab it and kind of place it on top of one of these. I'm just doing this by eye. Let's go to the side view. Let's center it up. Somewhere about there. You can always zoom in to get yourself a little bit more accurate. Somewhere about there. Okay, size and everything's looking okay, so I've got that one. Let me Shift D to duplicate it, and I want it on the Y axis, so I'll press the Y key. I'll just bring this across to this side. Zoom in, just kind of center it up by eye, somewhere about there. Alright, so let me now shift select both of them. Let's duplicate again with Shift D, this time on the Z axis, or Z axis. Bring up with these rear ones, somewhere about there, and let's just pull these across. And again we can kind of center them up. Okay, it's probably a bit too high, somewhere about there. Okay, so I've got these, I've got the tops of the posts finished. Right, so while I've got all these selected, I may as well just make them one object, so I'll Control J. Okay, so now they're all one object. Now to sharpen these, are they all one object? Oh, the front two weren't selected. So let me just select these two as well, Control J again. Right, now they're all one object. Now to sharpen the detail on this, I'm going to use a modifier, which is an edge split modifier. So if I come on modifiers, and my edge split is here under generate. Okay, the way an edge split modifier works is you've got an angle. Now anything less than that angle stays smooth. Anything over that angle, like here, these will be close to 90 degrees. What it'll actually do is separate the vertices. It splits the edges, which gives you that sharper, crisper edge. Now if I increase this to over kind of like the 90, you'll see that that smooths out again. There you go, it's lost the top one, there it's losing the bottom one. So, you know, 30 works well, and if I decrease it, you're going to start getting the facets from the original geometry again. So 30 actually works well for about this. So I'll just leave it at 30. Okay, I can apply that modifier. It makes no difference. They're finished now. Right, so let's have a look in this view. And that's looking okay. Right, What do we want to do next? We want to kind of, let's take care of this front headboard while I'm here. So let's go into this, and let's go into orthographic view. This is too high and this is too low for me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to enable my occluded geometry again. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything around the cylinder on the top of this board. I'm going to pull this down. Okay, I'm going to come down here, I'm going to box select everything at the bottom. I'm going to kind of pull it up. No, I do want it that low to cover the base. That's alright. Well, what I can do then is I can invert my selection, or I could just box select everything up here. Invert selection will basically deselect everything selected and select everything that isn't. And it's quite simple. When you've had your selection made, just press the I key. Actually it wasn't. Control I. There we go. But it's left those selected there. Let me Control Z back a couple of times. Alright. So if I had these selected, I press Control I. There you go. It's selected everything that wasn't selected and vice versa. I'm just going to pull these down. Okay, so that's looking a bit better. Next, the mattress. It's very blocky. Mattresses are never this sharp and square. They'd probably rip the sheets if they were. So I'm going to edit mode. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to... how shall I do this? Let's go into edge select mode. So I'll Control Tab, select edges, and I'm going to deselect these actual corners. I'm just worried about the top and bottom edges at the moment. Right, and I'm going to bevel them. So Control B, and I'm going to pull that bevel in a bit. I'm going to use my scroll wheel to increase the number of cuts slightly, just to kind of soften this mattress out. There we go. Alright, now once again I can do the inverse selection to select these four edges. So Control I, and I can start to bevel those as well. So Control B, and pull this out. I'm going to add some more with my scroll wheel just to kind of soften this out. Is that working the way I want? No, it's not. So let's Control Z backwards out of that, and let's do it the other way. So I'll Control Z again. Right, so what I want is the four corners selected first. So Control I and Control B, start to bevel these and round these corners out. That's better. Alright, now it's probably be easier in vertex mode. Okay, so I've got these vertex selected. I want to select this complete ring, so Shift Alt and select, and I can Control B to bevel that now. Add a couple of loops and bring it in quite a bit. That'll work. And I can do the same at the bottom. So Shift Alt select, Control B. I don't need as much geometry down there because it's all hidden, but it'll just soften it up a bit. So object mode, now we've got this much softer mattress. Excuse me. Right, so what's next? That's looking a lot softer and more natural. I'm liking that. We're going to have to soften up a lot of these edges after, but we'll come to that after. We're getting the basic bed shape done here. I think next we need some pillows. So, excuse me, getting stiff in my old age. We need to add some pillows. So best way to do a pillow. Before, when we done this sofa, we basically started, let me move my 3D cursor here out of the way. We basically started with a cube and softened it up pretty much like we did with the mattress. But I think this time for the pillows, because pillows tend to have, you know, that is folded material rather than stitched. It comes into a crease rather than a soft corner. So I think we're going to use an herb surface. So I'm just going to model a pillow over here off to the side. So Shift A, and we'll add a surface, and we'll add a NURB surface. Okay, we'll come across to our surface tab here, and I'm going to want the endpoints to come to the end of the grid. So if I go into edit mode, my grid's way down here, and it's going to be easier with my endpoints down. So I'm going to select my endpoints that way. Let's go back into object mode for a minute. So okay, that's an awful big pillow, so let's scale it down a bit, and now I want to scale it kind of like half the width or the height there, whichever way you're looking at it. So SX. Okay, that's very tall, so let's SZ, let's bring it down. This is kind of like half a pillow here. Right, okay, so we've got this flat basic shape. Let's use a mirror modifier on it, so we get the bottom half mirror. Now we don't want it on the X, we want it on the Z. So now we've got this kind of pillow shape. Quick and simple. Okay, we can apply that modifier, and we can then convert this whole thing to a mesh rather than a curve, because at the minute it's still a curve. So let's Alt C and turn it into a mesh. Now we can see it's actually a mesh. Okay, so that's kind of like quick and dirty. We can then, when it's a mesh, we can then kind of model it some more. If I turn off this background here, say if I choose that, my proportional editing is still on. So if I was to say grab that, I'm going to move my scroll wheel to get circle of influence. On the Z axis, I can kind of pull down a dent in the middle of the pillow. I can grab vertices here, much as we did with the sofa before, and start to make some pillows. Okay, right, so object mode, let's grab this on the Y rather, and on the X. Right, still a very big pillow, so let's scale it on the Y, some on the X, a bit more on the Y. Okay, so if I grab this, that's kind of like a pillow. Pillows rarely lay flat. You can make your pillow any size or what you want. So I'm going to rotate this on the Y slightly. So RY, going to rotate it, pull it up. Maybe rotated it too much. Pull it down. Okay, so that's one pillow. Let's Shift D on the Y-axis, pull across another pillow. You add as many as you want, and you can modify these individually. So let's Shift D and pull it up on the Z-axis. Let's pull another one in the middle here. This one can rotate a little more on the Y. It can kind of get lost in there and back in there, but there you go, making your pillows. Right, we're going to want to do the bed covers as well, but we probably want to do a bit of edge softening and stuff first. Where to start here? Okay, let's start with the posts. These are very, very kind of blocky. So let's I don't know if this will work the same way as it did with the size, but let's try it. So if we go to edit mode, and if I shift select all of these, so one there, got there. Okay, and if we turn this back to individual origins, if I control B, yep, that's kind of working. So I can kind of start to soften this out. I can do the same with this after, but let's carry on with these posts first. Control I to select the, no, that didn't work. Control Z. Let's just select these individually rather than figuring it out. Be just as quick. Control B again. Start to pull up this bevel. Right, okay. So what'll probably be easier now if I go to edge select, and I start to select 3 edges down the side on all of them, making sure I'm not selecting the horizontal parts. Where are the sides? Four more down here, and let's do a Control B, soften those up, probably with an extra radius or two. Actually, let me zoom in closer so we can see that easier. So Control B, start to pull these out. There we go, soften those up. Right, I can then kind of do the same here, so let me go into my side view and let me just box select these up here. So my B key, and same over here, B key, probably do the bottom as well, and B key. So that should be just those tops and bottom selected. Okay, Control B, start to soften those up a bit, add a little more geometry there. About there. Let's have a look at that look. Okay, now you see these posts are looking a lot softer. Once again, do smooth shading on it. You know, if you look at the furniture around your house, you'll see that the edges are not sharp. They're on wooden furniture. It's always softened off. You know, one, it helps the strength of the wood. It stops it from splintering, or helps to stop it from splintering at the edges, and you don't cut yourself and splinters and that sort of thing. So anyway, we can go around, and I'm going to do this off camera. Is I'll go around and soften the rest of these edges. We need to soften the edges along the headboard, and we could probably do is soften it on the mattress as well. Not the mattress, the base. Control B, and we'll do the same with the bottom. Control B. There we go. So that is the basics of the bed. Now when we come back, we're going to be adding the finer detail, and then we'll do the cloth simulation, get a bedspread on it, and by which time we'll be ready for basically adding materials and baking.